Daily Trust News Center. This is the News Hour.
On News Hour tonight, ECOWAS Economic Community of West African States direct defense chiefs to activate and send standby force to Niger. Death toll from plateau violence rises to 21. Tribunal sacks NNPP House of Representative member in Kano over alleged certificate forgery, declares APC candidate winner. Away from Nigeria, Uganda president defiant after World Bank suspends funding over LGBTQ law. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Hour. I am Abdurrahman Omar. Thanks for joining. Now, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has resolved to deploy troops to Niger to restore constitutional order in the country. The regional bloc has therefore directed its Committee of Defense Chief of Defense Staff to activate its standby force to Niger. The West African leaders reached the resolution on Thursday after an extraordinary summit in Abuja. Kende Amadou reports.
All diplomatic efforts made by the regional bloc to resolve the crisis in Niger have been defiantly repelled by the military leadership in the country. To compound issues, the junta has ignored the ultimatum given to it to restore constitutional order in Niger and has gone ahead to form a new government. Obviously angered by the recalcitrance of the Niger junta, West African leaders have resolved to uphold all measures and principles agreed upon by the extraordinary summit held on the 30th of July 2023.
Taking note of the expiration of the one-week ultimatum given for the restoration of constitutional order in the Republic of Niger, decide as follows. Direct the President of the Commission to monitor the implementation of the sanctions. Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately. Order the deployment of the ECOWAS standby force to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger.
And you will see from the communique of this extraordinary summit that no option is taken off the table, including the use of force as a last resort.
But the ECOWAS authority is keeping all options on the table for the peaceful resolution of the crisis.
We still look to engage the party involved, including the coup leaders, in honest discussion to convince them to relinquish power as suggested and reinstate President Bazoum. It is our duty to exhaust all avenues of engagement to ensure a swift return to constitutional governance in Niger.
In maintaining its stance, ECOWAS leaders are aware of the underlying international interests by different players and are asking the African Union to endorse all its decisions. They are also calling for the support of all partner countries and the United Nations in efforts to ensure a quick restoration of constitutional order in Niger. From the ECOWAS Extraordinary Summit in Abuja, Kende Amadou, Trust TV News.
Now, Kende Amadou is our State House correspondent, is joining us to discuss resolutions reached at the ECOWAS Extraordinary Summit that just ended in Abuja. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you very much.
Now, to dive right into it, ECOWAS has resolved to deploy standby force to restore constitutional order and at the same time exploring diplomacy to resolve the crisis. Give us your take on that.
Well, it's something that is expected. ECOWAS has given the junta in Niger an ultimatum to meet up with demands to restore constitutional order in Niger. The leaders in Niger have refused to do so. They have rebuffed all diplomatic overtures. by the ECOWAS. And so it has come to this. The West African sub-regional body needs to show a strong stance, and that is why it is saying it's not going back on the fact that it's deploying forces. But that is just on one hand. Diplomatic overtures will continue. That is why you see that even last night, the president met with the ulama in the country and gave them the go-ahead to find means to peacefully resolve the impasse in Niger. So it will go side by side. Note that the president of Nigeria, who is the chairman of ECOWAS, has said that the deployment of troops to return constitutional order is as a last resort.
Now, the first stance of the ECOWAS was that of the military action, and now it is saying that they should try to exhaust all diplomatic means in order to resolve the Nigerian political crisis. What is your thought on this too?
Well, the fact is that it's not only ECOWAS that is involved in this issue that is going on in Niger. There are all other international players that are involved there. And so the best thing is to look for all peaceful means to resolve the issue in Niger and avoid the boots being on ground in Niger, because once a war starts or a conflict starts, it's only the beginning. You don't know how it will end. So I think that is why ECOWAS is saying yes, we will send troops, but the diplomatic options will continue until it is obvious that there is no progress in that direction.
All right, now President Tinubu is insisting that the junta must be convinced to reinstate President Bazoum. Do you see this happening, especially when viewed from the adamant posture of the coupist when threatened with ultimatum?
It's hard to tell. And then let's try and clarify issues. It's not President Tinubu that is insisting. It is the West African leaders. President Tinubu, as much as possible, has tried to downplay because of reactions he's got in his own country that don't particularly support the military option. So he has said, well, it's not my decision. And that is why you see that at this time around, other people other than the president insisted on this military option. Will the military option work? It depends on the interplay of forces there. The sooner a constitutional order is restored, the better. Because if the matter continues to drag on, then you see all sorts of players entering the conflict zone. And you don't rule out the fact that there are people that are just waiting by the wings, waiting to sell their weapons so that they can fuel the conflict in Niger. So it is understandable that the West African body is pursuing the option of dialogue and diplomacy. And that is where it is.
All right, let me take you one more time. Now, if eventually Bazoum has reinstated, Nigeria's leadership position in Nigeria will be further consolidated. What should Nigeria do to reap from this if eventually that happens?
The thing about it is that Niger is a very close neighbor to Nigeria. There are 6 states that that are on the border with Niger. So that is quite a long borderline. Obviously, there have been an exchange of trade. Obviously, there are relations across both borders. So the benefits are already there for Nigeria. I don't think that Nigeria will gain anything extraordinary. In fact, it stands to lose if the situation in Niger deteriorates into conflict, because you know that the humanitarian crisis that will be triggered by that kind of conflict will be borne by Nigeria. Remember, 6 states across the border, and so people will just cross over the border to Nigeria, and Nigeria will start bearing extra burden. So it's not so much about Nigeria benefiting from a strong stance in the West African region. It's a matter of Nigeria benefiting from its bilateral relations with Niger.
All right, Mr. Kehinde Amadou, our State House correspondent, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, moving on, the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, on Thursday commended President Bola Tinubu's diplomatic approach in resolving the crisis currently faced by the Republic of Niger. CAN President Archbishop Daniel Oko, in a statement, also commended the leadership of ECOWAS for their unwavering commitment to discouraging coups d'etat and the forceful takeover of power. The Christian body, however, warned against military intervention in Niger, saying that such move will create enmity between Nigeria and its neighbors in the embattled country. CAN also implored all stakeholders involved in the matter to embrace peaceful negotiations, exercise restraint, and tirelessly work towards a sustainable resolution of the crisis in Niger. In the meantime, the military leaders in Niger who seized power in a coup last month have formed a new government. According to a decree read out on national television on Thursday, Prime Minister Ali Mohamed Lamine Zaini will lead the 21-member government with generals from the new military governing council heading the defense and interior ministries. The head of the mutineers who took control of Niger, General Abdurrahmani Tiani, has issued a decree establishing a new transitional administration. Reports say Chiani signed the order on Wednesday, adding that the new interim administration now has 21 ministers. A very small percentage of the new government members are listed as serving in the military. Gunmen on Thursday morning attacked two communities of Haipan district in Barikin Ladi local government area of Plateau State, killing 21 persons, including 4 vigilantes. The spokesperson of Operation Safe Haven, a multi-security task force maintaining peace in the state, Captain Ola James, who confirmed the latest incident, said troops of the operation have been deployed to the community to restore law and order. Ado Musa completes the report.
The attack occurred around 1 a.m. when most of the residents of the community were sleeping. It is coming 3 days after a commuter who was returning from Kara, a cattle market in Bukuru, was attacked and killed in the Haipan area. According to the spokesperson of the Birom Youth Mullahs Association, Ruan Tengguang, 17 persons were killed in Haipan town, while 4 others were killed in Rayagot village. The group accused the herders of launching the attack, an allegation that was denied by the chairman of Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria in the state, Nur Abdullahi. The residents of the attacked communities explained how the attack was launched.
We had to call the security agencies and alert them that this is the information we have received from Fulani militias who are threatening to invade our community and unleash mayhem on the inhabitants of the community. So the information reached the ears of the security agencies and in good time. But to our greatest dismay, we don't know the effort they made in order to salvage the people from the mayhem.
The situation is seriously, we are very angry and we are crying over the loss of our people. And people are agitating that the security personnel are not trustworthy anymore. So for that reason, they should evacuate them around Haipang and if possible, Barikin Ladi and Plateau State.
While condemning the attack, Governor Caleb Mutfwang has called on the security agencies in the state to fish out the perpetrators and prevent further occurrence of the dastardly act. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
The Nigerian Army has inaugurated a special court-martial to try 35 officers and soldiers that have committed various offences in the line of duty. The special court-martial was inaugurated in Memalari Cantonment, Maiduguri. Ademungulde has more.
The Theatre Commander Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Hadin Kai Major General Gold Chibuisi has inaugurated General Court Martial to trial personnel found wanting in the discharge of their duties. Major General Chibuisi says about 35 soldiers who were suspects of different offenses shall undergo the proceedings to receive the verdicts based on the acts committed. Represented by the Deputy Theatre Commander, Major General Olatukumbo Musiliu Bello, the theatre commander explained that the offenses that were charged against the personnel include rape, murder, loss of service property, and failure to perform military duties, amongst others. He charged the presiding judges and other members of the court-martial to ensure a speedy trial.
We do not tolerate indiscipline in any form. And I can assure you, this tradition has been passed down even before we even joined the army. What we're doing basically today is to uphold that tradition. And I can assure you, our current chief of army staff, to the theatre commander, to us here, we're all rooting for one thing: discipline and justice.
According to him, said Nigerian Army was known for its discipline and reiterated his commitment to uphold it to ensure no military personnel contravening the law is left unpunished. The theatre commander tasked the judges to avoid negativity that will undermine the smooth conduct of the court, as well as the lawyers to assess their professional conduct that will assist the court in achieving justice.
The court should make sure that sitting takes place day to day as provided by the book. However, this is without prejudice to adjournment on reasonable grounds for parties to perfect their respective tasks. We are not unaware of the fact that justice delayed is justice denied, and also justice rushed is bound to crash and with consequences.
Major General Gold Chibuisi warned that frivolous adjournment should be avoided and make sure that day-to-day sittings are maintained as provided by the book. He noted that the conduct of the military trials under the armed forces is to allow the armed forces to deal with matters that directly deal with discipline, efficiency, and morale of the army. From Maiduguri, Adamu Ngulde, Trust TV News.
The Nigeria Immigration Service says it will go after the killers of two of its personnel in Sokoto State. Abubakar Imam reports that officers were killed by gunmen at Mamman in Gwadaba local government area 2 weeks ago. 4 other officers sustained gunshot injuries and are currently receiving treatment at Usman Danfodio University Teaching Hospital, Sokoto. The report.
The officers were at their duty post along the Ilela Road during the attack. The attackers were said to have come in large number on motorcycles penultimate Sunday evening. Each motorcycle was said to be carrying 3 men armed with AK-47 rifles. 2 of the personnel died on the spot, while 4 others sustained gunshot injuries. Bloodstains and smashed glasses can be seen at the scene of the incident during our visit on Wednesday. The Acting Controller General of Immigration, Caroline Adepoju, who was at the scene on Wednesday, described the attack as barbaric and inhuman. She therefore vowed to go after the attackers.
2 of my men were murdered in cold blood a few days before our anniversary. I would have been on ground much earlier than this, but because of the activities of the 68th anniversary, we lost young stars, promising lives. I will not fold my hands. I'm going to move the powers to support me in Nigerian Immigration Service. I'm going to work in collaboration with the army, with the police, and every force. And we are going to go after the people who disturb the peace of Nigeria. We are going to fight them. We are going to pull them down. And we will succeed by the grace of God.
Adepoju also visited the 4 officers that were injured during the attack at Usman Danfodio University Teaching Hospital. While consoling them, she commended their bravery and promised to take care of their medical expenses. During a courtesy call on Governor Ahmed Aliyu, the acting CG sought for the state government support in the area of logistics. From Ilela Border Post, Abubakar Awal Imam reporting for Trust TV.
The Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has adjourned till Tuesday, August 15 for further hearing in the applications filed by the suspended Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele, seeking to stop the federal government from further remanding or prosecuting him on the charge of illegal possession of a firearm and ammunition or on any other charge. Justice Nicholas Oyibo ruled that the application, which touched on the jurisdiction of the court, was priority and will be taken alongside another application filed by the government, seeking the leave to appeal against the order granting bail to the suspended CBN governor. Counsel to the suspended CBN governor, Victor Oparasan, had told the court that the application was germane and superior by reason of the persistent, relentless disobedience of the DSS to a clear, direct and potent order of the court on the bail application of his client. Counsel to the federal government, Kapa Bami, who disagreed with the defense counsel, told the court that the prosecution had filed first its application seeking leave to appeal and to stay the proceedings of the court pending appeal. She urged the court to hear the federal government application and grant an adjournment for Emefiele's application. The court then adjourned to August 15 for hearing of both applications. In the meantime, the National and State House of Assembly Elections Petition Tribunal sitting in Kano has nullified the election of Tarauni Federal Constituency member Mukhtar Yarima of the New Nigeria People's Party over certificate forgery. The petitioner Hafizu Kawu of the APC challenged the electoral victory of Mukhtar Yarima, which the tribunal nullified on Thursday. The three-member tribunal ruled that the primary school certificate tendered by the respondent Mukhtar Yarima was forged. The tribunal averred that Hausawa Primary School has disowned the certificate as the name of the respondent is not on its record. The Kebbi State Deputy Governor Umar Abubakar Argungu has opened his defense on the allegation of perjury filed against him by the People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate General Aminu Bandi at the Kebbi Governorship Election Petition Tribunal. 3 witnesses have so far testified in the defense, which opened on Tuesday on the petition that centered primarily on his unsuitability for the position of the Deputy Governor. The report.
The case is becoming
Well, we apologize for that technical problem. We might bring you the report during our subsequent bulletin. Now, moving on, the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Taurid Labaja, has promised that kidnapping, banditry, and other criminal activities currently ravaging the southeast region, especially Iswokutu and Omonochi local government area of Abia State, will soon end. The Chief of Army Staff made the promise on Thursday when he appeared before the House ad hoc committee set off to investigate the ongoing killings and kidnappings in Omochi community in Abia State. The report.
Represented by the Deputy Director Operations, Army Headquarters, Brigadier General Gabriel Esho, the Army Chief assured that all security agencies are working round the clock to address the insecurity in the region. General Lagbaja acknowledged the kidnapping remains a potent security threat, especially in 2 local government areas, following recorded cases of kidnapping and attacks by criminals suspected to be elements of the proscribed people of Biafra IPOB in the month of July.
It is pertinent to state that incidents of kidnapping in the southeast region witnessed a surge, particularly in the second quarter of this year. Recently, efforts of the Nigerian Army through 82 Division, in conjunction with other security agencies, has diminished the threat of kidnapping considerably.
The NSCDC, in their submission, called for the decreed proliferation of small arms in the state, called for cooperation from members of the community if success is to be recorded in the ongoing and the fight against criminal elements in the state.
And there is lack of this cooperation by the community. When people are trying to get information from them, when they go there for manhunting, who is part of that criminal act, I think to volunteer information is normally difficult.
Chairman of the committee, Obinna Agwocha, appealed to the security agencies to take challenge seriously, stating that the situation in the region should not be viewed as mere statistics, but a real-life situation which must be addressed by all the security agencies.
So the intricate landscape demands a comprehensive and collaborative approach to address the multifaceted security challenges. The effort has to accommodate the concept of back-channel negotiations, which has emerged as a potential avenue for conflict resolution.
He applauded the efforts of the state government in the Southeast region in policy making, budget allocation and direct support to the state security apparatus in the effort to combat the menace of insecurity. Also on Thursday, the House Ad Hoc Committee probing employment racketeering in agencies of the federal government resolved to issue a warrant of arrest on Haruna Kolo, currently a staff of Assets Management Company, for his refusal to appear before it despite issuing several invitations to him. Chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee, Yusuf Gakdi, made the announcement at the ongoing investigation by the committee, who is expected to submit its report to the House. Meanwhile, House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on Student Loan had summoned the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, to appear before it on Tuesday next week. This follows our appearance before the committee on Thursday to intimate it on how students will access the proposed student loan announced by the President as part of palliative measures to ameliorate the hardship suffered by students and parents as a result of the removal of full subsidy. The committee was set up to amend the Student Loans Act with view of removing the bottlenecks that has discouraged students over the years for accessing the loan since the act was passed into law.
Now back to our earlier story. The Kebbi State Deputy Governor Umar Abubakar Argungu has opened his defense on the allegation of perjury filed against him by the People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate General Aminu Bandi at the Kebbi Governorship Election Petition Tribunal. 3 witnesses have so far testified in the defense, which opened on Tuesday on the petition that centered preliminary on his unsuitability for the position of the Deputy Governor. The report.
The case is becoming hotter and more interesting by the day, as both the defense and prosecuting counsels are entangled into a hot legal battle of struggling to outsmart each other, while supporters of each divide of the two political parties have turned the courtroom and premises into a center beehive of activities, everybody wanting to double-cross the media in breaking the news first. 3 witnesses have so far been called before the tribunal, out of which one only presented documents to the court, while Aminullah, a traditional ruler who appeared on Tuesday, and one Abdurrahman Jafar Lawal, a director from the Sokoto State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, who testified in defense of the petition, were all subjected to tough cross-examination from counsels of the two sides. As a matter of fact, even with an interpretation from the two contending counsels, who naturally have always been singing the melody of success to their own side, it is difficult to predict where the cool air of justice will eventually blow. Barrister Keke Elijah San, defending the interests of the Deputy Governor and ruling All Progressive Congress, explained the Wednesday's proceeding and remarked that they never had doubt about the success of their client.
What transpired today was that we continue with the defense of the third respondent, that is His Excellency the Deputy Governor, and we force the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Basic Education in Sokoto to produce certain documents, especially a report pertaining to certain investigation as may be relevant to this case.
However, Barrister Noura Bello, standing for the People's Democratic Party and its candidate, General Aminu Bande, also offered explanation on the Wednesday sitting and is seeing things differently.
In his Form EC9, of which he submitted to INEC, he indicated clearly that he finishes Sultan Abubakar College in 1979. Putting that alone signifies that he finishes from that college. And now, all this rigmarole, where the third respondent being able to present grade 2 teacher certificate of him before the tribunal, they were only making reference to mock examination. I told you, even the exhibit they tendered this morning, it was only carrying asterisk within his name, which clearly shows that he has not written grade 2 teacher certificate in that college.
From the Kebbi State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, Umar Afanda, Trust TV.
You're watching the news hour on Trust TV. Coming off after the break, we take a look at how to resolve farmer-herder conflict. Details of these and more after the break. Do stay with us.
It was never a consensus. We did all our best. You see, in politics, you give your contribution to the best of your ability.
If you want, I'll forward to you this statement. You go to this bank and verify.
But there are people who say not spending money is not about you in itself.
Let me finish.
But there's so much to be done.
Let me finish. Now, you don't allow me to explain myself.
The recent development shows abductions are now a factor of informants embedded in community.
It's not about the people of Katsina to say that, no, during my administration I was able to stop insecurity. No, it's about collective responsibility for all of us.
And what we should ask ourselves is not what has been seen, is the life better? Are there more people who are unemployed who are not become employed? Is the level of corruption has gone down? Is there inclusion? All those issues.
We're actually a gas country with associated oil. Our focus has always been on oil, that we have never paid significant attention to gas.
To do it effectively, we need to have honest conversation with ourselves. Government needs to come down from its high horse and communicate with the people and build trust.
There must be a solution. We cannot continue this way. They must come back to the table and agree. So whose child will do deny education? All these children that sit for jam, they want to go to higher institutions.
But just a short while ago you were saying that why bring 10 children when you cannot cater for them? So why bring more universities when you cannot cater for the existing?
Welcome back, and if you are just joining us, this is the news hour on Trust TV, and here is the recap of some of our top stories. Economic Community of West African States directs defense chiefs to activate and send standby force to Niger. And death toll from plateau violence rises to 21. Now moving on to other stories. The healthcare delivery system in Katsina State is on the brink of a crash as medical doctors in the state are overstretched due to paucity hands. This alarming situation is leaving the healthcare system in a state of crisis, with only emergency services being provided at some hospitals. Jamil Mabai was given an exclusive access to some hospitals from where he felt in this report.
Looking pale and exhausted, doctors in Katsina are overwhelmed with workload. In the last quarter, 25 doctors have left the state services. And according to Dr. Saminu, an additional 20 are planning to leave this month.
The state of affairs of health in Katsina State, so to say, is in a very sorry state. I will tell you every day where I work, I almost say on a daily basis, I signed resignation letters. In fact, on daily basis, they are living, gravitating either within the state, migrating from the state services to the federal establishment or to the NGOs that we have in the state, or some of them have left for abroad.
In Ture Specialist Hospital and the State General Hospital, only emergency services are rendered. The situation is alarming.
Because of the shortage of manpower, the General Hospital, O&G section, they have to close down their gynae clinic. And it also happened the same thing in Ture. Because of the manpower, we cannot continue. We just have to provide emergency services only. Unfortunately, as I'm talking to you today, we don't have any ophthalmologist at that eye center today. When I took over, we have 3 pediatricians working with the state government. And now, as I'm talking to you, we have only 1 pediatrician remaining. That's in General Hospital Katsina. So, and then when you look at the subspecialties, like in the O&G, was the same story. At a time, we have about 6 gynecologists in the state. Now we have just barely 1 or 2 gynecologists working with the state government. It's the same story with other specialties. We have only 1 nephrologist, only 1 urologist, 1 neurosurgeon. So you find it very difficult, even those that are around, you find it very difficult to work.
With an estimated population of 10 million people, there are less than 100 active doctors available.
Mostly doctors look at their career progression. And then secondly is the remunerations, the welfare package, and then the working condition. You assured me of my own career progression, which is not applicable in the state government. And then the other issue is the working condition. I will tell you that we are, so to say, still offering a healthcare services that is more than 50 years old, because the equipment, the gadgets that we are supposed to use that are latest are not there. So you realize that even a specialist only offers some rudimentary services, where his friends are providing a high-tech surgery. He here is limited, still providing the services like he's still in the 1970s.
According to the World Health Organization, a doctor-patient ratio of 1 to 600 is the basic standard. In Katsina, it is 1 to 100,000. The situation is further exacerbated by the emergence of bandits' attack in Katsina. The new state government says it has a clear strategic health plan in place to address the deficit in the sector.
The agenda, especially of His Excellency, the transformation agenda, health component in that respect, concurs or it keys into the health system, touches virtually every component of the health system, especially the human resource for health.
Dr. Samini is worried after witnessing 2 of his colleagues collapsing due to workload. In this state of distress, more doctors will certainly leave the state services. Jamil Mobay, Trust TV, Katsina.
The Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service says the body of a male adult that jumped into the lagoon on Tuesday afternoon from Lekki-Ikoyi Link Bridge has been recovered. The director of the service, Margaret Adesi, confirmed this in a statement on Thursday. Adesi said the search and rescue operations began immediately when the alert of the incident was received on Tuesday. She said the team had been in search until the body was recovered on Thursday at the Lesama end of the lagoon bank. She added that the recovered body has been handed over to the deceased family. Residents of Gombe State say they are battling soaring prices of prescription drugs in medicine stores amidst the soaring cost of living in the country. Some families who spoke to Trust TV say they can no longer afford medications and other consumables for their loved ones in hospitals due to skyrocketing prices. Ibrahim Ismail reports.
Abdullahi Usman, who has been working to fund medical bills of his dependent, reached a nearby store to buy medicines prescribed for the patient, but could not do so due to soaring prices. I came to buy drugs, which cost 3,300 naira, but I couldn't afford the price. I reduced the drugs to meet my budget of 2,000 naira. We are struggling to eat. We have been here for almost a month. Drugs are expensive. A syringe sold 20 naira before now cost 50 naira. Drugs that used to be 1,000 naira is now 1,400 or 1,500 naira. Due to the current economic hardship in the country, many Nigerians are already struggling to put food on the table. This is now worsened by their inability to afford some over-the-counter drugs for the sick relatives.
Or something of their belongings, you can give them drugs. After treatment, they will bring back, they will get the money and bring it for us. And sometimes they have to buy just the one that they can afford and start using it for the meantime.
Those who could not afford doctor's prescription are settling for cheaper drugs, despite the consequences involved.
And when you see patients cutting down the number or the frequency of drugs, ultimately the desired effect will not be achieved. So it means it's more of wasting money, and it will cause a lot of problems. If it's antibiotic, there will be what we call resistance. There should be a deliberate effort by government and at the same time non-governmental organizations and philanthropists to subsidize the drugs. If at all we want the people and the masses to get the right drug for the right ailment. Because at the moment, drug is very expensive because what determines the price is demand and supply.
Since the beginning of the year, Nigerians have survived tough times, from the scarcity of the redesigned Naira notes to the current hardship caused by the removal of fuel subsidy. Ibrahim Ismail, Trust TV News, Gombe.
A cross-section of Benue residents have called on the federal and state governments to put modalities in place to enable farmers go back to their ancestral homes as a way of ensuring food security in the state and the country at large. They are worried that at the moment little or nothing is said about tackling the farmer hardest crisis, which has negatively impacted farming and food production in the state. Jimmy Azandi reports.
While a lot is said about the agricultural economy, some are of the opinion that the first thing to do is to address the farmer header crisis through the open grazing prohibition and ranches establishment law of the state.
Let government take a dispassionate look at it. Bring all the key stakeholders, and I emphasize businesses because that's important. Bring the herding community, bring the businesses, bring everybody. Give them equal ground to speak about this law and suggest new ways of going about it. And implement their recommendations, because their recommendations will help us make progress. Let's not politicize this. It's not about politics. Secondly, there are mitigation measures. Let mitigation measures be developed on the basis of the evidence on ground, not on the basis of somebody's figment of the imagination.
They mention some of the effects on the agricultural economy in the state.
The effect is serious on food production. The effect is serious on animal husbandry. The effect is serious on farming practices and all of that. And nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to give serious attention to it.
There is hope that the issue will be addressed as hinted by the government.
It's pointing to the fact that many things will change in the Ministry of Agriculture. I think we're going to experience better time this time. Because like I said to His Excellency, this is the first time in about 10 years that we are having a discussion on the auspices of the governor. Called us together and said, let's interact on the issues that affect agriculture.
One of the campaign promises of Governor Hyacinth Elia was to return the farmers displaced by herders invasion of the state to their ancestral homes within his first 100 days in office. Many are looking forward to the fulfillment of that promise with each passing day. Jimmy Azandi, Trust TV News, Makurdi.
The federal government has urged the National Council on Climate Change to develop a comprehensive climate change adaptation project for flood management in Nigeria. This will form part of the agenda at the COP28 scheduled to hold later in the year in Dubai and define regional priorities of ECOWAS. Government expressed the hope that the project will help to avert severe floods across the country in the future and design a clear plan to resuscitate the Lake Chad basin. Report.
Climate change is set to reduce the length and reliability of the rainy season, increase the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, and cause land degradation, soil erosion, and low farm output. Nigeria is gearing up for the 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference of Parties COP28. Its participation will focus on federal government's plan to implement a $100 billion loss and damage funding. This represents a commitment to bolster climate finance through various channels.
The loss and damage agreement, which provided hope for many low-income countries bearing the brunt of climate change, must be finalized in Dubai. Just energy transition, where we expect discussion to focus on incentivizing and enabling emerging economies to transit sustainably in accordance with their national priorities, capacities, and based on greater financial support, must also be finalized, taking cognizance of the need to include more favorable terms for developing countries along with technology transfer.
With an existing act stressing on the Climate Change Action Plan, Nigeria's priorities are set to be measured.
It is the implementation of these various instruments that you hear what the Renewable Energy Agency is doing in terms of promoting mini-grids. You hear what the NNPC and Ministry of Petroleum are doing with respect to implementing the petroleum industry bill that sets to end gas flaring by 2030. You also hear what Ministry of Agriculture is doing in terms of carrying out and popularizing climate-smart agriculture that minimizes wastage of both water, the soil, and other resources that go into agriculture.
Climate change is one of the most pressing issues facing the world today. Nigeria, as Africa's most populous and largest economy, is particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change due to its diverse ecological zones, high dependence on natural resources, and low adaptive capacity. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Renovation works at Diko College in Katsina is still not completed 3 years after the contract was awarded by the Central Bank of Nigeria, with a completion period of 20 months only. Abdullahi Ahmadi reports that over 500 students of the college are anxious to see the completion of the work meant to create conducive learning environment. His report.
Progress of the work is at snail speed, even as the completion period elapsed since 2021, according to the contract agreement. The fear many are entertaining is that 3 years after the award of the contract, academic activities may be obstructed or shelved again when students resume in the next few weeks. The entire premises and the proportion of the work done suggests that a lot need to be done to actualize this work. Some concerned all students of the college who were on assessment visit to the site with a view to reporting development to the appropriate authorities speak.
So all I will call for is to initiate action again, so that work starts in earnest. Why should it be stopped? This is what we are discussing now, me, you, and him. You see, to get government come back, the contractor should be summoned to come back and complete this thing. There's a standing promise that before they are coming back, something will be done to accommodate elapsed students to complete their exam and to start work.
Diko College, otherwise known as Government College Katsina, is one of the premier institutions in northern Nigeria. The institution is the alma mater of prominent personalities including former President Muhammadu Buhari, late General Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, Emir of Katsina Abdulmumini Kabir Usman, to mention but a few. Abdullahi Ismail Ahmadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
In the meantime, residents and business owners in Yenagoa, the Bayelsa state capital, have called on the federal government to fix Nigeria's ailing refineries in order to end the rising cost of living. They made the call following the hike in the price of premium motor spirit, popularly called fuel, due to the removal of fuel subsidy. Trust TV's Friday, Ebimoboy Peter reports.
The removal of fuel subsidy in the country have caused increase in the price of commodities, premium motor spirit, popularly known as fuel, and even hike in transportation system. Residents and business owners in Yenagoa who could not bear the pains occasioned by the subsidy removal called on the federal government to fix the refineries in the country. A resident in Yenagoa, Bekela Bomompa Odu, said the subsidy removal affects everybody, including the rich and the poor, that even palliative cannot solve the situation considering the era we are now.
Subsidy removal is affecting everybody in the country. Why am I saying so? Because once you touch one sector of the economy as sensitive as fuel, and you know that everybody, either you travel by air, you travel by road, you travel by water, you travel by air. And even if you travel by air, you have to take a taxi. So it affects almost everybody in this country, particularly people who are not buoyant.
Also, is business owners in Yenagoa, named by Emmanuel, who is a provision store owner, and Emmanuel Friday, a laundry shop owner, expressed the difficulties they experience.
In drinks, copious are no longer only gen based on the fuel subsidy. Yes, because when you go to train station to buy a fuel now, you cannot be able to afford the liter of fuel. So based on in provision level to go to market and buy goods them, the provisions them. Now the transport affair is very costly. So when you look those transport affair now to put the price of steel, customer will definitely complain. So it's very affected.
The thing they worry me well now because of that. So don't put my price for the product where they iron. Customer need to come again and me say no carry work. Before now 400 why they collect it, now say na 600. What thing I want now make the government do so make it then cut the fuel price down.
Their businesses has not been good ever since the federal government pronouncement. Friday, Ebimoboy Peter, Trust TV News, Yenagoa.
And now away from Nigeria, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni on Thursday denounced the World Bank's decision to suspend new funding in response to a harsh anti-LGBTQ law and vowed to find alternative sources of credit. The country will have to revise its budget to absorb the move's potential impact, a junior finance minister said. The World Bank said on Tuesday that the law, which imposes the death penalty for citing same-sex acts, contradicted its values and that it will pause new funding until it could test measures to prevent discrimination in projects it finances. The World Bank has an existing portfolio of $5.2 billion in Uganda, although this project will not be affected. The anti-LGBTQ law enacted in May has drawn widespread criticism from local and international rights organizations and Western governments. Though it is popular domestically, Museveni said in a statement that Uganda was trying to reduce borrowing in any case and will not give in to pressure from foreign institutions. Still on the international news, at least 17 Rohingya refugees have been killed and 30 others remain missing after a boat capsized in bad weather in the Bay of Bengal earlier this week. 8 workers in Myanmar said volunteers on Thursday that 8 people were rescued from the boat, which was headed for Malaysia, a coveted destination for thousands of Muslim-majority Rohingya people fleeing persecution and poverty in Myanmar and Bangladesh. It was unclear from where the boat had set off. A Rohingya aid worker in Mokdong Township on the border with Bangladesh said the boat had departed in bad weather and about 500 others were still hoping to cross to Malaysia. Nearly 1 million Rohingya people live in crowded conditions in Bangladesh, among them those who fled a deadly crackdown in 2017 by Myanmar's military, which has denied committing crimes against humanity. An untold untold number of them have died at sea from disease, hunger and fatigue as they attempt to reach Muslim-majority Malaysia and Indonesia in rickety boats. And now let's join Adeni Ajishafi for Sports News Update.
Team Nigeria's impressive outing at the 7th edition of the Commonwealth Youth Games in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago got better with Ogazi Samuel winning the men's 400 meters gold in a time of 46.99 seconds. Samuel's winning time was almost a full second ahead of silver medalist Austin Malachi of Guyana with 47.97 seconds. And Beck Alexander of England, who clinched the bronze, finishing in third position with 48.20 seconds. Nigerian youngster Olawale Olariwaju finished 7th spot with a time of nearly 49 seconds. 25 athletes aged 14 to 18 years are representing Nigeria at the Commonwealth Youth Games. And in football, Super Falcons defender Ashley Plumter says she would love Coach Randy Wardrum to continue as the head coach of the team. The defender said Wardrum has put in a lot of work into the team and it will be better for the American to lead Super Falcons ahead of 2024 Olympics qualifying games. Plumter said Wardrum brought her into Super Falcons with her switch from England to Nigeria made possible through the input of her coach. Meanwhile, Randy Wardrum has said he is keen to continue as the head coach of Super Falcons while the decision lies with Nigerian Football Federation leadership. That's Sport News. I'm Adeni Ajishafe.
And with that, we have come to the end of the news hour on Trust TV. Do not forget to follow us across all our media platforms and our YouTube live stream. I am Abdurrahman Omar. Thanks for watching and bye for now.
From the Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.